Welcome everyone, I'm Zanae Dames, the Marketing and Events Manager at Digital, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's information webinar on the request for Canadian partners on Horizon Europe Cluster 1 health projects. As myself and much of the digital team are based in Vancouver, British Columbia, we respectfully acknowledge that we work, learn and live on the traditional ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with our audiences in the coming week. If at any point during the session you have a question, please type it into the chat and we'll address them at the end during the Q&A portion. That's it from me, and I'll be handing it over to Digital's Director of Intellectual Property and Partnerships, Jane, to get this webinar started. Thank you, Jane.
Thanks so much, Sine. Hola, bonjour, and welcome everyone. It's wonderful to have attendees across 2 continents, some of you which are joining us in the evening hours for this information webinar to explore concrete opportunities for collaboration with a specialized focus on the health cluster of Horizon Europe and in advancing transatlantic collaboration in health and biomedical innovation. Next slide, please. In 2024, Canada officially joined Horizon Europe, the European Union's flagship research and innovation program, through an association agreement to Pillar 2, which focuses on tackling global challenges and enhancing industrial competitiveness. This landmark step opens new avenues for Canadian researchers, institutions, and innovators to collaborate directly with European counterparts on large-scale, high-impact projects. The Spanish National Research Council, CSIC, Spain's largest public research institution and second most active participant in Horizon Europe, is actively seeking Canadian partners, and with its extensive experience, multidisciplinary expertise, and strong track record in EU-funded research, CSIC offers a valuable gateway for Canadian entities aiming to engage in international R&I partnerships. During our roughly 75 minutes today, the aim is for you to gain insights into the structure and the funding opportunities of Horizon Europe Pillar 2, the role of the Canadian National Points of Contact, CSIC's collaboration interests, and practical guidance on building and preparing your pitches for collaborating on these submissions. Next slide, please. And just to take a moment to share about Digital, we are one of Canada's global innovation clusters, and we're thrilled to be hosting this webinar today. With a pan-Canadian presence in a diverse community of over 1,500 organizations focused on advancing digital solutions critical to Canada's health and prosperity through a collaborative innovation model not unlike what we see with Horizon Europe that sees consortia coming together better than any single organization could alone to solve these big problems. Next slide, please. Of our 3 pillars of focus, the one that is highlighted in pink that we'll just draw upon for a moment, it represents a significant portion of Digital's co-investment portfolio, roughly 65%, in health, genomics, and life sciences innovation, and the focus of today's session. Next slide, please. And just a snapshot of Digital's impact. Our impact includes deployment in every single province and territory in Canada, and now in almost every country in all continents, except for Antarctica, through the World Health Organization's deployment of a solution which was developed in Vancouver that has now formed the backbone of global clinical decision support guidance for antimicrobial resistance. A significant portion of our co-investments in IP asset generation is through small, medium-sized enterprises, and our investments in supporting talent and workforce development are helping both communities and individuals to participate in the digital economy. Next slide, please. And without further ado, we'll get started with this session, and I have the pleasure of introducing my ecosystem colleagues. Please join me in welcoming Alejandro Romero, Barry Dabrine, and William McRae. Alejandro is Head of International Biomedicine Programs at CSIC and their Cluster 1 Horizon Europe lead. Barry is one of Canada's 2 NCP for Cluster 1 health contact points and is also a Senior Research Officer at the National Research Council of Canada. And William is also one of Canada's 2 NCPs for Cluster 1 Health and with the Vice President's Office Life Sciences at the National Research Council of Canada. And with that, Barry and William, I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Give me 2 seconds and I'll find the panel that the presentation that I'll be sharing in the, here we are. Does that show up okay?
Yes.
Good. So my name is Barry de Bruin. Also on the line is my colleague Will McRae. We both represent, for this purpose, we represent our Ministry, Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, as we are national contact points in support of Canada's involvement in Horizon Europe, and then in this case specifically for Cluster 1 Health. So in the next, I'm just going to take about 5, maybe 10 minutes at most, but probably less than that, to give a very high-level overview of what Horizon Europe is in the context of Canada. Most of you on the line would be familiar with this, but that's just to ensure that we are all on the same page and we don't have any confusing matters left. So Horizon Europe, even though us Canadians are relatively new to it, it is definitely not a new initiative. It's simply the 9th installment of a long series of framework programs launched by the European Commission in the European Union. So it started about 40 years ago, and as you can see, budgets have grown steadily over those decades, with the current one spanning about 100 billion euros, which is at current exchange rates well over 150 billion Canadian dollars, which makes it the largest funding opportunity, coherent funding opportunity worldwide ever. So this being Europe, what does Canada, where do we fit in? As you see on this map, we're not the only associated country which are colored in green. Even within Europe, there are a bunch of countries that are not part of the EU, but are associated for the purpose of Horizon Europe. That includes that includes Norway. Of course, the UK after Brexit had to renegotiate their way back in, and Canada followed suit and entered shortly after New Zealand, which is another of the associated countries. So in all, there are 50 countries eligible for Horizon Europe funding, composed of the European EU member countries and the associated countries. Our signatures were put down pretty much, well, no, pretty much a year ago, but effectively the negotiations were done about a year and a half ago. So in that time, organizations have started to be involved. And the Canadian involvement is led by our ministry, ISET. Just to give a picture of the general structure of Horizon Europe, it's composed of 3 main pillars. Pillar 1 is the fundamental pillar, called excellent science. Pillar 3 is the high-level practical pillar to innovate inventions and get them traction. And it's pillar 2 that we're focused on, because pillar 2 is the pillar that Canada associated with. And we haven't associated for pillar 1 or pillar 3. It doesn't mean we're necessarily ineligible, but our association status hasn't changed anything around that. Pillar 2 is composed of 6 main clusters plus a set of missions, which some people call the 7th cluster. And if we're talking about health, Cluster 1 covers health, and there's also one of the missions, Mission Cancer, that would be relevant as well for people that are looking at health-related research. Looking at the program on a time scale, it started in 2021, it ends in 2027. Composed of 2 strategic plans that each span half of that period, with a midpoint analysis and assessment in between. Those strategic plans are implemented through work programs, and the work programs each spawn a number of topic calls, and the calls fund projects. So that's how the funds start to flow. We're currently in the work program 2025. It has just opened about 2 weeks ago. Calls will close in September this year. For those organizations for which 2025 perhaps comes a bit too soon, there's going to be another round of work programs to be pre-released late this year, with calls coming out in the early months of 2026, and a further round of calls in the early months of 2027. Now, the fact that a call opens in 26 or 27 doesn't mean that the funding stops when Horizon Europe stops, because funding can run well into, say, 2030, etc., depending on what the agreement is. And it is still considered to be part of Horizon Europe, even though after 2028 we might well have moved into a 10th framework program. Just a few quick words about the role of national contact points. These are the ones for Cluster 1, myself, Will McRae. There's an NCP coordinator, Tamara Sohn, at ISAD. We are there to help. We are there to provide support. We don't need to be kept in the loop at every point in time. We're not gatekeepers in any way or shape. We provide guidance and practical information and also assistance, not just in the application or the matchmaking phase of everything, but in subsequent phases as well. So contracting, execution, closeout, etc. And we are networked with other NCPs in other countries and other regions and other clusters. So it makes us really nimble in making linkages as far as we've got the capacity to do that. A few words mostly for the Canadian prospective applicants. ISAD coordinates this. It's the European Commission that is fully in charge of administering the program. So all interactions between the funder and the recipient goes through Brussels. So it does mean that you can expect certain levels of bureaucracy. You need to comply with European parameters on research transparency, accountability, privacy legislation, specifically GDPR, etc. The European Commission runs a number of portals. They're a bit tricky to navigate, and it takes a bit of time to get the hang of all that. But those are key to ensure success. The calls are all top-down, so they tend to be fairly prescriptive in what expectations are and expected outcomes and impacts. So do read, digest, and fully understand the call text to the letter. If you don't, your proposal might be deemed ineligible or inadmissible, and it just means a lot of time wasted to prepare the application. And then finally, these are by definition consortium-based applications. So any application requires at least one partner from an EU member states, and it requires at least 3 countries to be represented in the consortium, so a minimum of 3 parties. Build your consortia, and that is largely why we are here in conversation with our counterparts in Spain. There might be two main strategies to join a consortium. One is if you really have a good grasp of the topic and the deliverables, start one from scratch, that's fine. Or join one that is already forming, because there might be gaps in sort of consortia that are halfway. They might identify gaps where you perfectly fit in. And that is it from my side. I'll hand it back over to Jen, and I'll stop sharing. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Barry, for sharing that. And with that, I'd like to invite Alejandro to the screen, to the stage, to take over for this part now. Over to you. We see your screen, Alejandro, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, see.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you all very much for attending this event today. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, all Canadian team, for helping us organizing this kind of event. That it's really, really exciting for us to keep building collaborations with Canadian organizations, and more specifically, as your national contact points pointed today within Cluster 1 Health calls for this Horizon Europe Work Program 2025. Just a very brief presentation of what's CSIC. CSIC, the Spanish National Research Council, kind of the homologue of Canadian Research Council there. We are a pretty big organization. We are more than 17,000 research people, and we are basically organized according to our different knowledge fields. So we are, as you can see, 120 plus research centers, and we cover virtually all fields of knowledge. So we are a great partner to join because we can easily complement your consortia once you identify maybe a missing profile that you'd like to identify within our networks or within our institution ourselves. Here are just some figures about our participation to show off a little bit, but that's basically the message. Is we are the second most active organization in Horizon Europe according to number of actions funded. These figures are quite not updated, but we are still on that second position, so it's still valid anyway. And now we are talking about this Horizon Europe, and more specifically within this specific part of Horizon Europe, Pillar 2, health cluster, as the NCP for health there in Canada mentioned. There are these main features about these projects that we have to bear in mind when considering applying for this kind of funding. And the first one is that these are collaborative funding opportunities. So it's crucial to build a consortium. There's this minimum requirement of partners coming from at least 3 different countries. It doesn't mean that projects are usually granted to consortium of a size of 3 entities, because what you're expected to do is to cover the whole value chain with actors from every sector involved within the matter of a problem. So when we are talking about consortium, we are talking usually about, depending on the funding level and stuff like this, but around 10 organizations. Since Canadian entities are quite new, or at least relatively new to this Horizon Europe whole scheme, we guess that it could be useful for you to give you a hand, incorporate you in our coordinated proposals, and also offer you our expertise in, as I've said, virtually any field of knowledge, and also the access to our European networks, which we assume to be maybe stronger than yours because of just geographical and political reasons. So given said that, I'm gonna start mentioning specific topics, which are the names of the calls, basically these prescriptive calls in which the European Commission is going to explain you in a really specific way the kind of activities that are expected to be covered within your proposals in order to be considered to fund. And after each slide, I will specifically mention maybe some profiles that we'd like to contact within Canadian networks in order to incorporate them in our proposals. But we are open in basically collaborating in any proposals that you're crafting or ideas that you're considering, and also accepting different profile suggestions to incorporate in our proposals, even though we hadn't already thought about them. So first call is this call devoted to the impact of pollution on the development of brain diseases and disorders. Projects are going to be funded with 6 to 7 million euros, and they usually last, this is almost universal to Horizon Europe projects, between 4 or 5 years, depending on the work that you're planning to do. They want you to perform mechanistic and population studies that actually describe the mechanisms underlying the causal relationship between environmental pollution and the development and progression of these neurodegenerative and neurodevelopmental diseases. When trying to depict your ideas, it's important to apply this exposome conceptual framework. Those of you who are working in this field already knows what's this about. And here the clue is to develop new methodological models that allow us to better integrate multiple new technologies like imaging technologies, multi-omic technologies, bioinformatics, in order to analyze this development and progression, always linked to the exposure of specific pollutants in specific contexts, if possible, like working context, during pregnancy exposure, and these kind of specific situations. And they want to be really, really precise in the way you describe your methodologies and the aim of your projects. In this field, we are participating in different proposals, and we are really open to receive expressions of interest from clinical researchers that have access to cohorts and longitudinal studies with this retrospective and long-term exposure data. We also want to meet new chemists and experts in environmental sciences that are used to working on emerging pollutants, how to perform risk assessment methodologies, and also to study different exposure pathways. And also we are looking for public health experts that help us developing the public health indicators, the social economic determinants of this kind of impacts in health. And for sure, as I've mentioned before, we are open to any other suggestions if you are considering to contribute to proposals in this call. Okay. Second call is advancing knowledge on the impacts of micro nanoplastics on human health. 7 to 8 million euros per project. Similarly, 4 to 5 years of duration, and it's quite similar to the previous call. In this case, we are not focused on in generally pollution, but in pollution caused by micro and nanoplastics. And in this case, it's not restricted to these neurological diseases. It's wider in terms of the impacts that these plastics have on human health. They want you to suggest new analyses and methodologies which are realistic in terms of mimicking the conditions under which we are usually exposed to these micro nanoplastics. That means we need to consider logical concentrations, shapes, sizes, compositions, and exposure rates as they happen in real life. It doesn't make any sense to test, huge concentrations in a really tiny in vitro model, because it's not going to mimic real conditions. They want to improve techniques for detecting, collecting, and analyzing these micro nanoplastics. They want to understand toxicity determinants. They want to understand the impact pathways at the molecular level, cellular level, tissue, and systemic level. They want all these outcomes to be used to elaborate recommendations, public health guidelines, and to make basically policies that allow policymakers, as the European Commission, to develop measures to protect our health. We're open to receive all these kind of profiles and any other that you can imagine. I'm going to speed up because I'm basically eating the time of the presentation. Okay, third call is advancing innovative interventions for mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopmental disorders. 6 to 7 million, 4 to 5 years. And they want to basically develop and validate in clinical trials new therapeutic approaches for handling mental health problems. There's this specific list of diseases that are under scope. They are, I think it's those collected under Chapter 6 of the WHO Manual of Classificating Disorders. But there you have some examples like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, autism, psychosis, etc. As I've mentioned, they want these preliminary clinical validations in order to test the efficacy and safety of new interventions. They don't need to be drug-based interventions, or at least not exclusively drug-based. They can be non-pharmacological interventions such as neurostimulation, psychotherapy, lifestyle interventions, and whatsoever. They also want to generate evidence about the mechanisms underlying the therapeutic effect, because in psychiatry it sometimes happens that they know some drugs that work, but they don't actually know how they work. So they put the emphasis on this kind of mechanisms of action. They want to develop and deploy tools also for monitoring these interventions, the way they are working, if patients are following properly the interventions and these kind of things. Those can be digital tools or any other kind of monitoring tools. And they want every kind of stakeholders to be involved within proposals. That means patients, associations, policymakers, industry, academia for sure. So don't miss any of these profiles if you want to build a successful proposal. We are also looking for collaborators in this call, from neuroscientists and psychiatrists working on gambling disorder or bipolar disorder. We are looking for social scientists and humanities experts that help us understand socioeconomic determinants of these mental health problems, linked to labor conditions, linked to housing problems, that kind of indicators. We also want regional and local authorities that have the competencies to deploy mental health programs in order to validate this intervention, and for sure, any other kind of suggestions. Next call, efficacy and safety of phage therapy for antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections. 15 million euros for each project for 4 to 5 years, as usual. They want a preliminary clinical validations, as always, safety, efficacy, and they want these phage-based therapies to be isolated or in combination with current antibiotics in clinical use. These phages need to be well characterized during this proposal phase. So you need to know specifically which phages you're using, which are the sequences, the stability, target bacteria, the host organism, and so on. They are looking for both approaches, customized preparations for a personalized approach for this kind of infections, or ready-to-use cocktails to be deployed in bigger scales. In this case, even though it's compulsory to perform a clinical trial during these first phases, they also cover in silico studies, in vitro studies, in vivo models, and any other preclinical phases that are needed to end with this phase prior clinical trials begin. And since this is a quite tricky field, like designing clinical trials with phages and that kind of stuff, they expect proposals to include a really robust regulatory plan in order to get your clinical trial proposed definitely approved. We are looking for clinical researchers that have already designed and participated within clinical trials with phage therapies. We are also looking for academic or industrial partners that have access to collection of phages that could undergo clinical validation in window of time, like in 3 years' time or something like that. We're also looking for organizations with experience navigating regulatory pathways, and we're open to any other profile interested in this. And next call is about developing tools to improve the quality of life of people suffering intellectual disabilities, and also their families and caregivers. 6 to 8 million euros per project, 4 to 5 years. In this case, it's quite open call, always focused on this kind of diseases. They want any kind of technology, intervention, care model that allows people with intellectual disabilities to be more autonomous, to live better lives, and for sure for those people who are looking after them to have an extra support. They're looking for a multidisciplinary approach. This can be applied to basically all of the Horizon Europe calls, but they expect clinicians, technology developers, people from the digital world as this supercluster in the Canadian ecosystem. They also look for social scientists and public health experts and anyone basically to join consortium in order to model these strategies that could improve eventually the quality of life of people. They for sure expect people with disabilities, families, caregivers to be involved within consortium from the very proposal stage, and solutions need to be tailored to the specific needs of the end users. If you're developing a tool for caregivers at domestic settings. We need to be focused on that profile and ensure that they will be able to handle our tools in terms of technical difficulty or in terms of size of the digital devices and that kind of things. Everything very focused on implementation. It needs to be feasible. We were looking for clinical and academic partners with experience in autism spectrum disorder. We were looking for patients, families, advocacy organizations, regulators, policymakers, basically anyone who could contribute to developing better solutions from mostly digital field for handling autism. You're welcome to contact us. Okay, we have another call focused on enhancing cell therapies through genomic techniques, 9 to 10 million, 4 to 5 years. In this case, basically, the goal is to have already tested cell therapies, or at least in the development pipeline, and to improve them through synthetic biology approaches in order to deliver better health effects. It's very important to mention that cell as a carrier of an active compound is not under scope of the call. We are talking about inherent therapeutic effects arising from the biology of the cell itself. Okay, projects must address specific therapeutic areas. In the call, you can see which are the medical fields in which you're expected to contribute with your cell therapies enhanced through these techniques. And they cover last part of preclinical validation, but you need to include first initial human studies, like preliminary clinical validation needs to be addressed in your proposals. And in order to do that successfully, you need a robust regulatory pathway to be considered during proposal crafting phase. They advise you to include small and medium enterprises. So when European Commission advises you to do something, it basically means that you are made to do it. So bear in mind this kind of phrases in the call, because they are really, really important. We're looking for clinical and academic partners who are used to developing and validating in clinical trials cell therapies, more specifically for endocrine and metabolic diseases. We are also looking for experts in genomic editing tools for cells. We also look for companies, bigger, smaller companies, who are also used to and have the infrastructure needed to at least piloting production line, following for sure good manufacturing procedures. And any other profile invested in this kind of things would be welcome. Another call focused on artificial intelligence tools for pandemic preparedness and response. 6 to 8 million euros, 4 to 5 years. This is a really also open call in terms that they look for AI-based tools. They look for applications in the pandemic preparedness and response world in a very wide term. It includes prediction, anticipation models, any tool based on AI for contact tracing, for monitoring public health measures, compliance, also for predicting, evolution of viral strains and that kind of approaches. They are all considered within this proposal. So no matter what your tool based on AI is applied for, as long as it's focused on viral infections with pandemic potential, you're likely to be eligible under this call. It's important that you consider already in the proposal phase to address properly challenges related to cross-border data access, and especially maybe challenging for you is to comply with applicable European regulations in these terms. So in case you need anyone navigating ethical data analysis or any other contribution to this kind of approaches, we would be willing to collaborate. As I've mentioned in other calls, you're expected to count on regulatory agencies, policymakers, medical and emergency ecosystems who are mostly in charge of responding to these health threats, and any relevant actor in the field to be a part of the consortium in order to deploy and design and deploy proper solutions. In this call, focused on applications based on generative artificial intelligence in healthcare, they will fund projects with between 15 and 20 million euros for 4 to 5 years. And they want basically you to develop and validate in the clinical routine new tools based on generative artificial intelligence that can act as virtual assistants, mostly to clinicians, in order to provide better healthcare, like decision-making support tools for, for example, diagnosis of complicated clinical cases, any tool based on AI that allow personalization of therapeutic approaches, stratification of populations in order to address better their particularities. When in terms of healthcare delivery, they are all under the scope of these proposals. It's important to emphasize that they won't fund any expansion of existing data or AI infrastructures, which are already existing. So, I mean, don't think about piloting as something that has already been tested. Maybe applying actual solutions to new fields could be under scope, but be really careful when considering these kind of approaches, because you could fall in this specific case, which is not eligible. And it's a really applied research approach. You need to clinically validate these tools using at least 2 clinical cases from 2 different medical areas. So they want really transversal tools to help clinicians deliver better healthcare. They expect you to be able to feed your artificial intelligence models with multimodal data. It means that the sources from which your model basically is fed need to range from medical image, medical records, imaging platforms, genomic data, biochemical blood tests, and whatever kind of data sources. They expect you to be able to operate this multimodal data and deliver relevant results for clinicians. Another call focused on antibodies and antibody-derived proteins for prevention and treatment of infectious diseases. In this case, we are talking about epidemic potential from viral infections. Okay, even though it's not mentioned in the topic title, it's mentioned later on in the call text. So you need to be focused on the viral families that I have written down in the slide, and they expect you to end the preclinical characterization and include first in human tests of efficacy and safety of these drug candidates. You're expected to count on countries or organizations coming from countries or regions in which these viral infections are considered endemic. It means that if you're working on I don't know, dengue, maybe it's considered endemic in some parts of South Latin America or in some parts of Africa. So you're expected to count on partners from these parts of the world. I don't know if you're aware, but besides European countries and those countries as Canada that have already signed the association agreement to Horizon Europe, any country considered as low and middle income countries are automatically eligible to receive funding. So there wouldn't be any problem if you want to count with someone from Peru to work in your proposals. You could do so with no problems. And as I've mentioned, the research focus is expected to be like multi-level, from preclinical completion of last essays of characterization to early clinical phases, and also industrial and regulatory research. It means that you need to count on the industry. You need to at least test a pilot line of producing this kind of proteins, because you're expected to not only show the efficacy and safety of these drugs, but your ability to produce them at scale in case necessary, in case of an outbreak of these infectious diseases. There's this other call focused on implementation research, focused on non-communicable diseases, 3 to 4 million euros project, 4 to 5 years. This is based on this term of implementation research, which is really fashionable, and it's the WHO, the one who's pushing this term forward. It's basically focused on delivering strategies to healthcare systems that allow to alleviate the burden of non-communicable diseases in this case, and ensuring the equity of access for everyone to this healthcare. It's quite an open term, so you just need to be sure that your disease of focus, like diabetes, metabolic diseases, frailty, chronic pain, and whatsoever, is considered non-communicable disease, and that the solution that you are suggesting, you can prove in which ways it could be implemented within healthcare systems and how it would impact the ability of these systems to be sustainable, to provide better healthcare, and to allow access to vulnerable populations. For example, developing tools or healthcare models for people from rural areas, from people from socioeconomic backgrounds, from poorer regions in your country, from more isolated regions in your country, and how those solutions would ensure better access for those people to this healthcare so much needed. Quite a strong focus, as I've mentioned, in equity and sustainability of these solutions, not only within our own healthcare systems, both public or private, depending on the healthcare model of the country, but also its viability to be translated to low and middle income countries and to be applied to these disadvantaged populations like the elders, poor people from rural areas, and so on. Okay, this other call focused on secretome cell therapies, based therapies, sorry, 9 to 13 million euros projects for 4 to 5 years execution period. They were looking to advance in already existing secretome-based therapies in order to substitute cell therapies because of the limitations that the aforementioned present. This basically means that we need to have the whole the overall set of substances which are produced by a cell, or specific compounds of which are secreted by these cells. They need to be already proved that they would entail a potential therapeutic effect, and basically they want you to suggest a project that complies with all the value chain in terms of both ensuring reproducibility from batch to batch production to showing both in preclinical and clinical trials the potential therapeutic effect, the safety, the efficacy of these approaches. They expect you to count on industries which are used to work under GMP conditions. It's expected for you to count on small and medium enterprises, not only big firms in these calls. So in case you're working on this kind of biotechnology approaches for therapies, you are more than welcome to contact us. We would be willing to contribute with our expertise in different fields, and so open to collaborate in this specific topic. Okay, and I think this is almost the last slide in terms of goals that we have selected: boosting the translation of biotech research into innovative health therapies. This is a very specific goal because budget 4 to 8 million per project, but there's this maximum duration of 4 years for your projects. They expect consortiums to be up to 5 partners, up to 5 organizations, They want this kind of smaller projects because they want it to be dynamic and really translation focused projects. So they want small consortia, they want shorter projects, and you need to be focused on translating these biotechnology therapies to the clinical performance. So you are expected to have all the preclinical assessment completed before proposal submission, which means September. You need to have already an approval in place for initiating your clinical trial, and you for sure need to be focused on biotechnology therapeutics, which means drugs based on hormones, proteins, RNA, DNA, and that kind of approaches. So clear leadership from small and medium size companies is expected. In fact, at least 50% of the budget of the project need to be devoted to this kind of organizations. And since you will be focused on translating and on deploying your therapy as much as possible, you're expected to include an exploitation and commercialization plan, which is kind of robust already during this proposal phase. And we are starting with the two last calls in which we have invited some researchers from CSIC and from some of our collaborating entities. After I finished my presentation, I will invite them to tell you their project ideas and the potential collaborations that they consider within their specific consortium. So, and this is the first call in which we have an invite to present their project ideas, and this is a call focused on developing clinical trials in several countries at the same time to validate orphan devices. It means medical devices applied to orphan diseases, or highly innovative medical devices, which means basically new deep tech approaches that satisfy public health need, which is not actually covered in the clinical practice. 6 to 8 million euros projects, per project, 4 to 5 years of duration. You're expected to perform multi-center clinical trials, including different countries. This is very important when you perform clinical trials within Horizon Europe projects. You're expected to count of different countries for two main reasons. The first one, to show that your intervention is not contingent on the conditions under which it's performed. You know, that maybe infrastructures, the operational procedures might be different from one hospital to another. So you're expected to include several places to perform this intervention. And the second reason to include multiple countries, it's because all the cultural and social determinants of health. If you're working, I don't know, in food allergy, for example, it's not the same, the profiles of the patients in the Mediterranean area in which they cannot eat, I don't know, peaches, rather than the food allergy profiles in Northern Europe, which are more affected by peanut allergy. So it's important that you cover different geographical regions in order to better represent the population suffering from specific disease. You need to suggest different, I mean, you can include in your project different developments and different stages of development of your medical devices. It means that no matter whether your device is already marketed to a different clinical application, or you're still working in your prototype at the laboratory level, all these kind of maturity levels are expected to be eligible. You need just to be sure that you will be able to perform a clinical trial in, I don't know, 3 years from now, which is basically the temporary scope of project. So don't be afraid of participating in case you have one of these medical devices candidates, even though it's not still so mature. Okay, it aims to generate scientific evidence that leads to the approval of these devices under CE marking, which is basically this distinctive that allow you to implement your commercial solutions within European countries. So you're expected to include very, very tailored regulatory pathway, specific tasks that will allow you to get this approval maybe during the scope of the project, maybe a couple of years after the project, but you need to be focused on this regulatory, navigating this regulatory pathway. And you also need to include a clinical trial feasibility plan where you explain which are your criteria for recruiting patients, which patients you're going to exclude and why, and how you're going to fulfill the requirements for the approval of this clinical trial. This is specifically relevant in case of orphan devices because you're working with diseases which are not that much prevalent. So you will need to ensure that you reach a population big enough for your clinical trial to be relevant in terms of statistical power. Okay, in this call, we will have Luis Caballero introducing his project ideas. In fact, he's going to talk about 2 different project ideas that he's considering to coordinate, and you will have the chance to listen to him in 5 minutes. And this is the last call I'm going to talk about today. This is basically generative artificial intelligence tools applied to biomedical research. Okay, we have already talked about tools based on generative artificial intelligence applied to healthcare. In this case, it's basically same conception but applied to research. Okay, from 15 to 70 million euros per project and an approximate duration of 4 to 5 years. You're expected to develop and validate these AI-based tools in the field of biomedical research. In general, not. You're expected to at least demonstrate the feasibility and the relevance of the outcomes of the implementation of these tools in at least 2 different medical fields. Okay, so if you have something on mind which is currently working maybe for infectious diseases, you need to expand the potential applications of your AI-based tool in different fields like, I don't know, medical imaging, vaccinology, oncology, or whatever, but at least 2 use cases in which you can demonstrate your tool to be relevant. Okay, as it's the case in the previous call, you expect to deploy these kind of tools in order to be able to be fed by multimodal data. In this case, you will for sure feed it with big data coming from epigenetic or genomic assays, but you can also feed them with artificially generated data with I don't know, abstracts from public publications in the scientific field of interest, whatever. But you're expected to be able to deploy this kind of tools in this manner. For sure, you will need to focus on ethics, transparency, and data reliability. In case you're not familiar with Horizon Europe, you will need to address this kind of things specifically every time you suggest deploying artificial intelligence in your projects. You will need to be able to explain how your algorithms are making decisions, how you're going to avoid any bias derived from data selection or from social biases themselves, how you're going to ensure that there's always a human making decisions at the very end. Like, these tools will be for sure useful as supporting tools, but there will be needed that you could explain who and when will make decisions given the results provided by these tools. And that's it. In this case, we have 2 different research teams. We had really a change in these last few minutes. It's not going to be Marce Ratera, the one presenting this solution. It's going to be another partner of this proposal. And we will also count with Ana Conesa, who comes from CSIC and who also has a project idea. So since I haven't checked the chat, I don't know if there's questions or something, but
yeah, we're
think...
doing them in real time. It's been great. Thanks to Coralie and Barry and some of the others. So we can maybe have some of your folks speak and then we can answer the rest.
Sure. Then I'm going to share firstly Ana Conesa's presentation, because she has this kind of agenda thing. She's currently in Greece and she needs to speak first in order to attend other things. So give me a sec. Okay, can you see my presentation?
I can.
Yes.
Great. Then Anna, the floor is yours. Please just tell me when you want me to pass the slide and I will do so.
Okay. So good morning, evening to everyone. My name is Ana Conesa, and I started to work on putting together a proposal for this call on tools, which is about leveraging multimodal data to advance generative artificial intelligence applicability in biomedical research. Alejandro was just mentioning this. I did not have the time to put a very comprehensive presentation, but just, some supporting material to, to present what we are looking after. First, maybe if you go to the next slide, I can present a little bit better myself. Okay, so just this is about myself. So I am a research professor at the Spanish National Scientific Council, and my area of expertise is the development of methodologies of algorithms and software tools for the analysis and integration of multiomics and multimodal data. And my lab has developed quite a number of methodologies that really cover all the steps that you need to cover to go from the raw multimodal data, like, genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics of imaging data, even to, some description of the phenotype, of the molecular phenotype. And there we have worked on everything related to experimental design, quality control, storage, a lot of statistical analysis and machine learning as well. And we also do a lot of interpretation and visualization. That's just that you know a little bit where is my background and where I come from. But now going back to the proposal, I just wanted to highlight, Alejandro, if you can go to the next slide, some of the, for me, the requirements of the keywords that were important for this proposal, that is about generative AI to advance biomedical research. So if you look into what is written in the description of the call, there is a number of important elements to consider, and that I listed here in these keywords. So it's important that the application provides generative AI model, which are also explainable. So this is something that is repeated a number of times, and it's important that your AI will be generative. Also, we have to consider the ethical component of the models and of the building of the models. Of course, they want this multimodal. They want that we create novel, new science. So they are expecting also that we discover mechanisms, pathways, processes that are important in the context of disease, and that we assess the validity of the models. They want that we develop metrics to test the quality in all this process of generating the models. So this is also something that is very much stressed. This new science and explainability is also related to identifying cause-effect relationships. So they really want to understand why a model is predictive, not just having the predictive powers. As Alejandro mentioned, they require 2 use cases so that we validate this in 2 use cases across different medical fields, that we engage somehow in the process end users and clinicians. It's not a clinical implementation per se, but somehow these stakeholders must be present, that is a sustainable solution, of course, engage the industry because it's a regular requirement of the EU codes. More about, I mentioned already, understanding the disease and strategy for treatment. And they also want involvement of people from social sciences to ensure this ethical aspect and the inclusion of AI factories in the process. Okay, so with that, if you go to the next, so this is basically how we are thinking of addressing this proposal, and there are many, points that needs to be addressed, but we want to start by generating foundational models of the disease by the integration of public databases and the participation of AI factories. We have already some partners that are part of these AI factories in Europe who will be part of this proposal. But this has using these models, we will using this multimodal data that is provided by the 2 use cases. Now we have participants that are in the area of cancer and in the area of Alzheimer's disease that have big cohorts and this multimodal component. And the idea is to use the combination of the public repositories and like the specific study. So it's the data that have been created by specific studies to develop kind of a digital twin of personal model that explain the progress of the disease. So we will then apply explainable AI algorithms to extract variables, but more important to generate narratives that describe the process, the disease process. Because we will be able to extract variables that are part of this, generative AI model. We want to put this model also in a cost-effective mathematical model that in which you can perturb mathematically some of the components to identify what will be the output of the perturbation. And this is something that we want to validate, for example, with organoids of other systems that are going back to the lab. What we want here is to implement large language models. This is also a component of generative AI, as I mentioned before, to generate narratives of the disease of the patient that can be understood by clinician and by patients. So we need to generate different narratives that are targeted to do different to the different groups. So it's not the same talking to a clinician that talking to a patient. And hopefully we can introduce also, because of this process and the incorporation of some other database on drug response, suggestions for treatments that are tailored to the patient, and that completes the cycle of the precision medicine that is using of these resources. If you go to the next one. So basically, this is the global idea, and we have kind of made sure that some of these keywords are represented in this process: the generative AI, the platforms of EU, the new science that has to be created, the engagement of users, the utilization of various diseases with these 2 cases. What we miss now probably is another cohort, because we have now some data for cancer, but maybe not be the best one. So we are looking for people who can provide multimodal patient data from large cohorts that can come into the system. We also can benefit from other contributions for the industry that may be able to participate in the generation of the AI models mainly. We have covered these parts here, also the experimental validation, but we could certainly use partners that are in the social science aspects and could, work on ethics and regulations and these kind of elements that also need to be included. And that's basically it. And probably any suggestion that you may have to improve this scheme, we will also like to hear.
Okay, Anna, thank you very much. I don't know if there's maybe a question or two that you'd like to answer in case someone in the audience is willing to maybe asking you whether you'd be interested in a specific profile. I don't know if there's anyone raising their hands while I change slides with the next one.
No, yeah, and Alejandro, I'm just also cognizant of time. We're coming up to around 75 minutes or so with folks, so we might start having folks drop off. We just wanted to flag that we're trying to answer also the questions in the chat as we go, so we can stick around for still a little bit, but just wanted to flag that for folks as we might start seeing them disappearing soon.
Okay, that's great.
So,
then.
So maybe what I can see, since I don't think that it's really now the moment to engage a very large conversation. So maybe for those who are interested, they can contact me. Maybe Alejandro, you can provide at the end
Yeah, sure.
our contacts for all these people who are participating. And then you just write me an email, because I mean, each answer to the questions here require time. Right, so it's probably
Perfect.
not.
Yeah, that would be
sure.
great. What we're hoping to do is to share a copy of the recording, as well as afterwards we'll kind of gather, with your permission, your contact details, and then those can contact you directly. That would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay. So just one thing, because I'm seeing now there are some reactions. So if you could also somehow keep these reactions, it will be great, because usually Zoom disappears everything when you leave.
Oh yes, I'm taking them in the background.
So if you can make a note and then share with us, it will be great.
Okay, Anna, thank you. Thank you so much for participating today. I hope there are so many people trying to contact you.
Okay, I need to leave now, but thank you for the opportunity to talk here. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, now let me introduce Luis Caballero, our second researcher, presenting his ideas toward two different project proposals in this case. First one, the one devoted to multinational clinical trials for highly innovative devices. And the second one, I haven't talked about it, but it's a call from the cancer mission, which is focused on innovative intervention for advanced cancers based mostly in surgery. So Luis, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Alejandro. So good morning to everybody. So I will try to be very brief, as Alejandro mentioned and pointed out in the first slide. I'm a senior researcher at the CSIC and also a CEO of Hybrims, which is a spin-off of the CSIC. Okay, so let's say I have the two legs there, the researcher and the startup leg. Okay, so first of all, if you go on to the next one, okay, yeah, okay, this in the first call that you saw here, we have a project objective of performing a multicentric clinical validation of a novel, very novel and disruptive medical device that allows to integrate on real time the molecular imaging to the well-established ultrasound multiparametric resonance image fusion in order to guide the biopsy technique in the prostate cancer. Okay, so just to very brief, actually the biopsy in prostate cancer is performed guided exclusively by the ultrasound, and in some places they also fuse the MRI, previous MRI images, but both of them offer only anatomical information to the clinician. So there is no metabolic information, and we have developed a system that offers this molecular or functional information. So as you can see in the pictures, you have a clear map of the hottest or the most active areas in the prostate, so you can guide the needle biopsy to these areas. So we are just looking for possible consortium partners, and I have written down the different profiles that could fit into this consortium. Remember that we go from the imaging and the diagnostics until the results of the pathologist after the biopsy. So we are looking for or seeking for pathologic samples image analysis experts. It could be by IA. Also for it could be manufacturers or experts in ultrasound devices in order to be more integrable into the clinical procedure. Also, the regulatory affairs intended for these medical devices could be very good profiles for us, and of course the clinical side, private or public hospitals, in order to carry on the clinical validation. Okay, so the next the other topic or goal that we intend to apply is has the objective of developing a very novel medical device for guiding the surgery by using molecular imaging based on PET radionuclides. This is intended and focused for robotic surgery. So at the end, what we want to do is to integrate in the operating room all the previous images that the patient has all the previous images of the patient that the physicians have, and guide in real time in the operating room the surgery to identify the tumors and also the sentinel nodes that is currently impossible. There is no way to obtain these images of the PET radio tracers. So at this consortium, the profiles we are looking for, it could fit image analysis experts. Also, the image fusion software packs for integrating all the different modalities into the operating room. Also, the experts in robotics, mechatronics, or the electronics, because at the end, the system, the detection system, it's quite complex. Also, laparoscopic surgery instruments and tools, manufacturers or integrators, and of course phantoms and all these kind of profiles. So please feel free to contact us and also Alejandro in order if you have any question or you think you can fit into these profiles or you have any doubt, and please, you are very welcome.
Thank you very much, Luis. I'm sure we will receive plenty of expressions of interest. I'm going to move to the last team who's going to share their project idea. In this case, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, because since there's been this last hour change in the team, I'm not very sure if it's going to be Alexis Molina, the one introducing this idea, or it's going to be anyone else. Oh, great, yeah, Alexis, me, yeah. The floor is yours. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
I think, okay. Okay, I'm not really skillful with Zoom. Okay. Now you're supposed to be seeing my screen.
Now I do.
Okay, great. Just let me know when you want me to pass the slide.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Alexis Molina. I'm Director of AI at Nostrum Biodiscovery, which is a spin-off of the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, which is one of the partners of this project, along with CSIC and the McMaster University as of now. So basically, our project revolves in the building of a virtual cell for contextualized generation of small molecules. So next slide, please. Basically, we've been working for a long time now in drug discovery, and I mean, we are one of the guilty agents of making drug discovery largely compartmentalized, right? So we always focus on, if we want small molecules and we want to inhibit a protein, we just focus on these two modalities, but we completely ignore genomics, and the people in genomics completely ignore binding, and that's applicable to many of the different modalities, right? So that makes that the process of drug discovery may be small molecules, antibodies, RNA, TPD, any other therapeutic modality still has the same problem, right? So they have all different advantages, but attrition rates are still high, no matter the modality, because we still don't look at the whole problem with enough context. So in order to solve that, we aim to change the vision that we have now for drug discovery and incorporate multimodal and multi-scale biological data in what we call a virtual cell. So this virtual cell, it's just a depiction of the different concepts of a cell. So proteins, RNA, single cell data, spatial transcriptomics, histopathology, all of these with perturbation data on these different scales that could be aggregated to feed a generative model that could, for instance, produce small molecules. So next slide, please. So for this, of course, we have two different strategies. One is leveraging data that is already available, because there's a lot of data, especially in RNA, protein, and single cell. But of course, this data still has a problem, which is not paired. So the first approach that we would take is leveraging the data that is already available and algorithmically try to pair and leverage this data. But of course, the big shot of this call is actually produce data, so generate new data that is designed and paired by this for these multimodal data sets in order to specifically train generative models. So for that, of course, we would use all our knowledge that we have here with the partners that we already populate this call in building foundational models for biological data, so proteins, RNA, single cell, and then mix our expertise with experimental expertise into perturbation data of these different modalities. Next slide, please. So basically what we're proposing here is first of a kind AI virtual cell specifically tailored to inform generative models for specific therapeutics. So we want to move away from the paradigm one single modality attacked by one single modality also, but to see the concept of drug discovery in a more holistic way, merging these different modalities. So we will focus in two different fields as the goal requires us. So the first one is oncology, which makes a lot of sense for the different modalities that we're able to exploit. And also we want to explore antimicrobial resistance by leveraging also data from bacteria. So we would expect from this call generative models and a lot of data that can inform those models that would make safer and also more effective therapies by reducing the attrition of the new modalities generated by just having these larger contexts inputted to them. So we would be effectively getting this new paradigm in drug development, and that's it. So next slide. So basically, we are Barcelona Supercomputing Center, Nostrum Biodiscovery, CSIC, and McMaster University as of now, and we're interested into anyone that can bring to the table high throughput experimental data in proteomics, single cell, multiomics, also biobanks, hospitals for data that it's already existing, biotechs that can help us to bring the different molecules that we would be able to generate down the path of something that we can test in clinics, and also, of course, a partner that can take care of the ethics and the social apartment that this call for, of course, requires. So if you have any doubt and you think that you might be a good fit, please contact me at alexis.molina@nostrumbiodiscovery.com. Thank you.
Okay, Alexis, thank you very much for your presentation. I think that's all from our side. Just emphasize our will to collaborate from CSIC in case you want to join one of the project's ideas that have been pitched today by our researchers and partners. In case you're willing to coordinate a specific project idea in one of the calls that I have introduced briefly, just reach out and we will contribute not only with our scientific experience, but also with our networks in Europe, with our infrastructures and with our ability to navigate European bureaucracy, which is another challenge. So thank you very much, Digital Canada, people from the NCP group, and also for the people from the Embassy of Canada in Spain. I leave the floor to Jen, which will do the close-up. And bye. That's all from our side.
Gracias, Alejandro. I think, if anything, this morning on one side of the continent and this evening on the other has fueled an insane amount of brain candy and excitement, I think, between both of our ecosystems. So thank you so much to you and to your team that has been on and sort of sharing these super impactful opportunities that are coming about. And I know it's generated a lot of traction in the chat and a lot of follow-up activity. So we'll share out those details. Before we close, I'd like to thank all of you for taking out time today, and would like to also give a moment to Cara Lee Garretts, the consul in the consulate in Barcelona for Canada, to say a few words as well before we close out. So over to you.
Thanks very much, Jen. Merci beaucoup. It's been a real pleasure to sit back a little bit in the wings and watch everything taking off. I'm part of the team of Canadian government resources that live abroad and work on behalf of the Canadian industry to connect you with opportunities like those that have so generously come our way from CSIC today. Really appreciate the time and the interest and enthusiasm. And thank you, huge thank you to CSIC, to Alejandro and everybody for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us. Any questions you might have about Horizon Europe, you can also reach out to me related to Spain, and look forward to seeing some great partnerships come together. So wishing everyone a great rest of the day and a great evening, depending on where you are today.
Thanks very much. So thank you all once again for joining our information webinar today. All those attending will receive a follow-up email in the next couple of days with all resources, contact details, and presentations discussed throughout this session, as well as the webinar recording. We will do our best to deliver this package as quickly as possible, but do ask for your patience as there are multiple proposal streams and contact points to consolidate. Have a wonderful day or evening, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.